Welcome to Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority, the lively and engaging podcast for business professionals who've always believed they have a book in them. I'm your host, Jillian Whitney. Join me as I chat with authors and industry experts from all around the world to explore simple strategies to write, publish, and leverage your business book. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or an employee, this podcast is for you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Easy Peasy Books podcast. And I have a friend in the house today, Katie Chambers, and she is an editor and she is a new author and everything in between. So anyways, before we get stuck in with our conversation, I'm going to let Katie go ahead and introduce herself. And please tell everybody who you are and what you do, Katie.
Yes, thank you. So I am an editor. As she said, I edit at all developmental editing, copy editing, and line editing. I don't do proofreading, but I have members of my team who do. I run an agency, an editorial agency. So I have editors that I work with on my team. And we edit fiction and nonfiction books. Because I'm a former teacher, my style is very teacher-oriented and hands-on, and I offer tons of resources for authors. I have a full resource center because teaching is really at my core. So I want to make sure, I don't just edit your book, I teach you about your whole journey. So,
yeah. Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And so you recently launched 2 books at the same time, and it was just like,
yeah.
Launching 1 book is tough. Launching 2 at the same, I don't even know how you're still walking, to be honest with you, because
I don't know. It was a ride for sure.
But they're similar. They're similar. So essentially, you have a book that's the similar book, but it's really talking to 2 audiences. And I think that's really important because that's a really important thing for authors to know is that you can't write to everybody. You have to write to a specific audience because I'm a business book coach. If I was reading a book that was for fiction writers, it wouldn't apply to what I do. So, of course, that's
Exactly.
why I like your nonfiction book, so
Yes.
definitely do that. So, tell us the journey. Why don't we step back and tell us the journey of how you actually began working on these 2 books at the same time? What was the backstory?
Well, they were going to just be PDF downloads on my website for purchase. Because, like I said, I have a resource center. Some of my resources are free, some of them are paid. And I was like, you know what? I don't have enough about self-editing, and that's so crucial. So I was like, on my resource center, the resources aren't just by me. I have curated resources from other industry pros, but nothing on self-editing. Like that important step was missing. So I was like, all right, I am going to create self-editing guides for fiction and self-editing guides for nonfiction. It's just going to be a PDF download on my website because that's my comfort zone. I know how to do that. And I just got started, and then they just kind of was like, I can't make this a PDF download. There's so much information.
Mm.
In order to really teach it well, I got to dive in there. And I got encouraged by a lot of people who had viewed the PDF download version that was still very long, but just not as long as a book, but close. They encouraged me to publish it and turn it into a book. And I was like, oh dear. I have never done this. This is hard. I teach other people how to do it, but I don't want to do it, kind of thing. But I just, I was like, yeah, I got to do this. I got to do this. I teach others how to do it. I encourage them to do it. I knew it was going to be costly, both in time and money. But I was like, I want to do this journey. I've helped other people do this journey. I believe in this journey. I can do it. And plus, it'll make me a better editor. It'll make me a better teacher if I've actually gone through the process myself, even though I'd researched it a lot so that I could help people. It's different when you've actually experienced it yourself. So now I'm like, oh, I can help my authors so much more now. But I'm really glad. I'm really glad that I did it. Yes, it was expensive, both in time and money, but it was I think I really believe in my books. I really believe in the message, and I feel like as PDF downloads on my website, they wouldn't reach as many people.
Mm.
And this is just a really powerful message that needs to get out there. So I'm glad that I didn't just keep thy narrow vision, and I open my eyes to the possibilities of what they could become. So, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So can you hold up your book for us? So
Yes, so I
it's
have these are my proof copies, so they'll have a little
okay.
gray bar proof copy, but this is Self-Editing Essentials for Nonfiction and Self-Editing Essentials for Fiction.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So let's define our terms, because for anybody listening today, there might, if you're an author or you're a prospective author, you might be saying, well, what's the difference with self-editing? Is that proofreading? Like what is self-editing? So can you kind of start us off by telling us, how to define that term?
Yeah, so after you finish your draft, you should absolutely never send a first draft off to an editor or an agent for querying whatever direction you're going. It's crucial that you go through some self-editing. Now, this means you're not hiring an editor to edit your book. You're getting your book into a better place, because good writing is rewriting. So many famous authors have said a sentiment along those lines. Good writing is rewriting. I don't know anyone whose first draft is ready to go. I mean, obviously there's grammar to fix and spelling to fix, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about content wise. I don't know anyone whose first draft is ready to go. And I have received what I feel like is some rough drafts as
Mm,
an editor. I'm like, I don't know if you've even read over this, and it leaves more for me to do. But self-editing is crucial for multiple reasons. One, as we said, good writing is rewriting. So you learn how to be a better writer. You improve as a writer when you edit your own work. So that's reason number one. The second reason, you save money and time on your editor. You're still going to need to pay for an editor because you can't see your book from a reader's perspective. And there are things that your editor will find that you did not find.
mm,
And even your editor isn't going to find everything. The more people that edit your book, the more eyes on your book, the better. So you're still going to need to pay a professional. But if you come to me and your draft is in a better position, two things happen. One, I don't have to charge you as much.
mm.
Two, I can now dive in deep and really elevate the book to a higher quality, because if you give me a book that's like, oh my gosh, I've got to work on, the organization's a mess, the ideas are not even fully explained, and then add to that your grammar, spelling, and punctuation errors, it's just like, I can only bring it up to maybe, this level. But if you give it to me at this level, then I can bring it to that level, right? So you're going to save money, but also you're going to end up with a better quality book, because now your editor can really dive in deep and not have to focus on all the issues. But we've got just the remaining things that you need from a reader's perspective to come in and see, and from a professional perspective to come in and see.
You're so right. And I really love what you said about, to be a better writer, you have to be a better editor. You begin to see that it's like, oh, I'm really lazy. I'm using the same cliches over and over again, or
Yes.
I don't transition from this idea to this idea. So it feels like, quick right
Yeah.
turn. What's happened here?
Yes.
Or you're kind of using some lame, and in summation, you're just using
Yes,
these
exactly,
catchphrases.
exactly. And the problem is, I think a lot of people know, or maybe they don't, but I think more people know that self-editing is important versus people that know how to do it.
Mm,
Uh, I was an English teacher, and one of my missions as an English teacher was to actually really teach students how to write, because I feel like when I was in English class, it was like we were assigned essays, we got a grade, we got some feedback, but we weren't really taught how to write per se.
mm,
Maybe they
mm,
taught us a little bit of the essay structure, like the 5-paragraph essay. For sure, they taught us some things, but not really how to improve your writing. And then part of the process was always self-edit, was always the editing stage, right? The English teachers have those posters up on their room that goes through the writing process, and there's always the editing stage there, but nobody taught you how to do it. Nobody graded you on it either. You just were like, okay guys, now it's time to edit your essay, and you like would change a word or two, and the teacher would have no idea how much you really edited. and you literally could rewrite the whole thing word for word the same, and they'd have no idea that you actually didn't do the editing page because nobody ever checked it. So when I became an English teacher, I made it my mission to teach people how to write, but also how to teach them how to edit. And I graded their editing. Like I taught them very specific editing techniques and strategies, because while writing and editing are related, they're not the same skill set. They're relatable, but they're not the same. They require different kind of techniques and knowledge. I'm going to teach them how to really edit. So I feel like that's what, my mission with these books was. I know most authors, I think most authors actually take the time to edit. They don't just send me their first draft, but it may feel like they sent me their first draft because they didn't know how to edit, or they didn't know what to look for. They were just like, oh, I'm supposed to now read over my book, and I'm going to read over it. And oh, I found a missing comma. Oh, I found that I didn't explain myself fully here. Okay. Okay. Now I'm done. Like they don't know what to look for. And they're just trying to edit for it all in one go. Like, I'm going to just read, and whatever I find, I'll fix, which means you'll miss things because you're not intentionally focused on looking for a specific type of issue. You're looking for whatever. So
it's too much. And it's too much. It's you can't take it all in. So one of the things that you actually talk about in your process is that you should have different passes of when you're going through and looking at stuff. And I think that's probably like a light bulb moment for people, because I think probably the majority of authors would say, well, I'm just going to kind of go and make sure, I'm got the commas in the right place and that sort of thing. Or I don't have any typos. So can you tell us what are the passes, and is there an order or not? Like, how does that all work?
So this is what I think differentiates my book from other books that have talked about editing. The best one I love is Self-Editing for Fiction Authors by Renee Brown or whatever. Her book is great. It is so great. It actually taught me to be a better editor. They teach a lot of things, but they don't actually teach how to edit. It's interesting. They teach kind of like, let me explain. They teach how to edit, but they don't teach a process for editing.
Okay.
So it's like they're showing you, oh, this is an important concept in your book. You should look over your book, and they have you some before and after examples. But again, it's just like, okay, now go edit your book. And you've seen some before after examples on a bunch of different topics. And then you're like, okay, now I'm just going to look for all these topics. And again, you're going to miss things if you're looking for everything. So that's kind of what I was like, okay, the teacher in me is going to teach a process, a system. So it's not just like, these are things you can edit for, but this is actually how you do it and in the order that you do it. So for the nonfiction book, the first pass is content. And you pick 2 or 3 topics. That's it. I think I have in the content pass, I think there might be 6 or 7 topics. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you don't do them all. Okay, you're going to pick 2 or 3. And if they're big ones, then only 2, right? And you're going to just, during your content pass, focus on those 2 topics. Perhaps the topics you chose were deleting unnecessary repetition, and aligning genre expectations. Maybe those are the 2 you picked. And as you go through, you're just making sure you don't have unnecessary repetition, because that is a huge problem in nonfiction books. You don't mean to, but ideas might overlap. And so if they start talking about one thing and it reminds me of another concept, and I'm like, well, you already addressed that concept here. So that's an important thing to look for. Is like, okay, did I unnecessarily repeat myself? And then did I actually fulfill my promise of the genre throughout the book? And that's all I'm going to look for, these 2 things as I go through. And then the next pass is organization. I have 4 different topics for nonfiction and organization, but again, pick only 2 or 3. Don't do all 4, even though there's only 4. Don't, because if you focus specifically instead of broadly, you're going to have a better end result. So maybe you pick transitions that you talked about earlier. I'm going to go through and make sure that anytime I switch to a new subtopic, I've got a nice signal transition that connects the ideas together instead of just saying, and next, or additionally. So I'm going to focus on that. And then I'm also going to focus, my second organization topic is going to focus on the chapter order and have I organize my chapters in a good order, logical order, and the subheadings within the chapter in a logical order. Those are the only things I'm going to look for. I'm not going to look at the other two organization topics. And then the next pass is writing. And again, pick 2 or 3 writing topics. Are you going to look at sentence fluency and find areas where you have too many sentences beginning the same in a row? Or are you going to look for wordiness? Because I have a chapter on reducing wordiness and gets very specific on all the different ways and all the things you can look for when you're wanting to reduce wordiness. So it's not just, oh, go make it less wordy, but it's specific, like these are the kinds of phrases or words that make wordy sentences that you can kind of cut. So I'm going to just work on sentence fluency and wordiness. And so I'm going to go through, I'm going to find areas where my sentences are monotonous and add variety. I'm going to find those flags that indicate a wordy sentence and rewrite that. Now I'm going to go to the technical pass, which is the last one. And that's where you're working on your grammar, your punctuation, your spelling, your things like that. And you're going to end up with a better result. And no, you didn't edit for all the things, because my self-editing essentials for nonfiction book has 21 topics and you did 2 in each pass or 3.
Wow.
So you did anywhere from 8 to 12.
Wow.
But guess what? Your book is now better for having done the 8 to 12. The editor can now do the other ones, or maybe they didn't even need to be edited for those other ones. We have strengths. So you have things that are like, okay, I don't even need to edit for that. That's something I already naturally do, or whatever. But if you do those 8 to 12, your book is already in a better position, and you weren't like overwhelmed by trying to fix all 21 topics. You were very focused. You were very strategic. And now you have a better book that your editor can now take to the next level. And you've also grown as a writer. And you've learned how to do those 8 to 12 topics. The last pass is the feedback pass. And this can be done. In my book, I say you can do it after content and organization, after your big picture editing, or you can do it at the end of all. But the feedback pass is now you have beta readers or critique partners. They're giving you feedback and you're now implementing their feedback. It's still self-editing, but it's self-editing with assistance, because they're kind of pointing things out to you from a reader's perspective, so that you can now get additional things. Because if you were going through your content pass and you didn't notice that you were repetitive, but somebody else can point it out to you, then that works too. They're like, oh, now you're going, oh yeah, now I see it. They help you kind of see things maybe you didn't see, and you grow from that as well.
So if you're incorporating reader feedback, should you be at a point where you're like not touching it? It's like, okay, I've gone through all my passes. I'm giving it off to my readers. I don't want to keep fiddling with it, because if it's a moving target otherwise, because I could be messing it up. So how do I handle that?
So you, like I said, you have 2 options, one after the big picture, and then that means you don't do your writing or technical pass yet. And that's fine, because really what you want your readers to give you is bigger picture feedback anyway. So if you're like, okay, I've done my content pass, I've done my organization pass, now I want to hand it to you and I want you to tell me what I couldn't see from the reader's perspective about what might be lacking in my content and what might be disorganized for you from a reader's perspective. So you can do it after that, or you can wait till you do all of them. But either way, now you're done for now. You hand it to them. You wait to get the feedback from all of them. And I say all of them because if you start implementing one person's feedback and then it contradicts somebody else's, and you're like, you wait till you get it. And in the feedback pass, I kind of talk about how I would approach this. So what I would do once I get all that feedback, I now read through it and I pull out common themes. What are people noticing? That's a common thread. And I highlight those common themes as like, okay, I definitely want to pay more attention to this. And then I list it in terms of like, okay, this is about my content. This is about my organization. And then I can order it in the order that it falls in the book, in whatever chapter it's in. Then you can go through and read what doesn't resonate with you, because you don't need to apply everything that they say. Some feedback just really truly doesn't resonate with you, or they didn't get, they weren't the right target audience, or, just you have control still. You don't have to just,
Right.
I'm just going to implement everything they said because they said it. Same with your editor. When you can reject my edits too if they do not resonate with you. But always the thing you want to do is make sure before you cross anything off of your list of edits, is to at least consider it first. And
That makes
not just
sense.
have your knee-jerk reaction of like, no, I'm perfect and this book is great, because there could be things about like, oh, I love that part and you didn't love it. No, I'm gonna keep it. Well,
Mm,
let's see. Is it necessary? Is there a reason why they said not keep it? Especially pay attention if it was a common theme. But
mhm.
again, you can then reject it, but at least consider it, and then make an educated decision, not a knee-jerk reaction decision on rejecting it.
No, that makes sense, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So, this sounds like a brilliant process, and I can see how it kinda takes your own. I think what happens is a lot of times you start revising and looking at your work and you can start feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, ugh, what am I even writing this book for? We can get into these weird things. But I think since it's such a structured approach that you kind of don't have time for the monkey mind, it's like, I got work to do. So it's almost like you're just sitting down with, okay, what am I going to do today? I'm on pass number 2. I'm doing these 2 things. It's like a checklist. You're just kind of
Yeah.
it's almost like you've hired yourself to go through your manuscript and do all these things. So I think that's really, really brilliant. The only thing that I could see is people would be like, "My gosh, this is gonna take a lot of time." But I think you're saying in the end, you've gotta put in that time because that makes for the better product, right?
Yes, because if you just hand it off to your editor, like I said, if you get it to them here, I might get it to here. I'm not going to get it to there. I'm just
Mm,
not in the time and budget you have allotted. So you're already going to spend time or money. It depends on where you want to spend your time and money. Do you want it to be like, I'm going to spend a lot of money on my editor and I'm going to have my editor do 10,000 rounds to get it to this level? Or am I going to do some of that time and money myself? And for some people, they'd rather just be like, you do it, right? And that's
right,
fine.
right.
And that's fine. But their time and money is going to be spent somewhere, or you're going to be satisfied with this level of a book.
Mm, mm,
If you don't spend the
mm.
time or money, then you're not getting there. You're just not.
Right.
Wherever you choose to spend that time or money. The other thing is that helps with them. I don't know if it helps with the monkey mind, but it definitely helps make the process better. Don't start your self editing after you finished your manuscript. Get
Mm.
distance. Get distance. Because I don't know about you, but if I read right after I wrote it, I'm like, I'm brilliant. It like always is like awesome.
Well, you're not objective, you're too close. So like you said, you need that distance. I'd always say I like 2 weeks where I just like come back and then I look at it because that's when I see all the holes. Otherwise, my brain is filling in the transitions that don't exist. So I
Exactly.
recommend
You
2 weeks,
just
but
wrote it.
what do you recommend? What's your distance level?
2 weeks to 4 weeks, yeah. Some, depending on how long the manuscript is, depending on how long you spent writing it, you might need it up to a month. Um, because if you like plowed through it and wrote it really quickly, you might need that month. You might need a little bit longer time to recharge the brain cells, rest. But that was actually the mistake I made with my books. And
Mm,
I've told clients this always, to always give themselves distance. And then what did I do? I was like just really excited to get my books out there. And so I started my self editing immediately. And I didn't pay for a developmental editor. I did pay for a copy editor and a line editor. But some of my beta readers were editors. So I had really good beta readers. And then I'm an editor myself. So I was like, all right, I can probably handle the developmental part. And then I'll definitely pay for the copy editing and the line editing. Although, of course, I also self-edited for that as well. I did all 4 passes. But because I did it so soon after, and I didn't pay for a developmental editor, after I published my ebook, I was like, I read it again a month later. I was like, oh, shoot. Now there wasn't any glaring grammatical errors or anything like that. That wasn't the oh shoot. The oh shoot was some things were disorganized. Like, why is that paragraph there instead of over here? It belongs in this section.
Mm,
And there's some transitions missing, and I didn't have enough examples. And so, like, that's teaching 101. Make sure you have enough examples before you ask them to practice it. And I'm like, how did I miss that? Oh, I'll tell you how I missed that. I literally read it right after. And it was like
mm,
brilliant, you know? Not to say I didn't make any developmental changes because I did, but I wasn't as effective because I didn't give myself space. And then I had brilliant beta readers who gave me lots of feedback. But, since I wasn't paying for a developmental editor, I needed to be very thorough in my own developmental editing. And I was a month later. So then
mm.
I had to relaunch my books. Like I have version 3. Version 3 of my ebook is out, and my ebook was just published 2 months ago. But now
Oh,
I'm at a
wow.
spot where I'm like, this is good. And luckily I hadn't had my paper books out, because that's what happened when I got my proof copies. I started reading through it. I was like, oh, this needs a transition. So that was the mistake. The biggest mistake I made was not giving myself enough distance, because I was, given my skill set and given who I had as beta readers, I could get away with not paying for developmental editor, but only if I did my best developmental editing work. And I can't do my best developmental editing work without distance.
Wow, that's a
So yeah.
great story. And we're always learning, and I know that I have worked with some clients who they went through the editor and they were ready to publish, and it was just like there's gaps. Like I could tell there was gaps, and it was just like grammatically, punctuation, spelling, all of that stuff was perfect because the copy editor was just doing what they were supposed to do. They didn't see that it's just like, yeah, but in chapter 2, they said there was a reference to what was going on here and it didn't get picked up. So those are
Yeah.
kind of the fundamental things. Now, do you need the distance with the passes or only the distance between kind of crappy first draft and where you're getting all the ideas out and you're writing the book pretty much as is. And then you want that break, like we said, 2 weeks, maybe a month even is great. But when you're going through all the passes, can I do pass on Monday and then the next pass, like, can I just kind of keep going or do I need distance there too?
Depends on how you're feeling, and how many changes you made. Again, I gave myself like a day or 2 in between each,
Mm,
um, just because I didn't want to read my manuscript again the next day. I'm like, I personally want a break. So that was more like a personal kind of break thing. But I think it does help to, as long as, I'll put it this way, if you are super focused on content during your content pass and did not think about the other things, then you're probably okay. If you don't want to if you don't need the mental break and you want to dive in, then you're probably okay. But if while you were doing the content pass, your mind was still kind of thinking of other things, and that happens, you
mm,
might want to give yourself that break so that you can come back with fresh eyes and not just be biased to the things that you were currently thinking during that pass, and then think that that's the only things, like, because if you like mental went, oh, I'm gonna do this during writing pass, I'm gonna do this during writing pass, and then now you've got like that mental sort of checklist, and then you miss the other things because you're working off that mental checklist, then maybe it's better to give yourself a little distance to have that mental checklist kind of out of your mind, and then you can come in fresh. So it just kind of depends what works best for you. But the only thing that I definitely say is the distance between the first time you write it.
that makes sense. That makes sense. So here's one that I notice that people get into the quagmire of they can't stop editing. So like they start editing and they're editing the edits that they're editing the edits of. And it's like they get into this spiral where it's almost like they get almost like OCD. So how do you get people to like, it's good enough, move on? Like
That
what's the
is the trap.
secret to that?
That is the trap. I've had many authors after I've given them my edits back, and my edits have, I for my most popular package is a combined package. So I'm doing developmental editing and copy editing. So they get my edits back, and I have like suggestions for adding certain content, or I have suggestions for rearranging certain content. And then after they do all that, they're like, oh, that made me think of this and this and this. And so then they start adding more content. And I'm like, well, now I got to re-edit all of this and see how it flows in the organizations. They're going to pay for that more. So I'm like, you just have to. Yes, I made suggestions on things to change. How about we just focus on those? Because we're going to take your book from the level you gave, whatever you gave it to me at, I'm going to improve it here. We could get it there, but if you want to, you're going to pay me more, right? You're going to pay me more to do another round and another round. Because there's some books I've given to people that I'm like, oh, there's so much more I could have done with this book. But in the time and budget allotted, that's all I could do. So you have to decide is if that's good enough for you, then you put it out there. And it has to be good enough. It can never be perfect, ever. If you're trying to shoot for perfection, your book will never, ever, ever be published. There is not a single book out there that I could not read and find ways to improve as an editor. Not a single one. Doesn't matter how great it is. I could find a sentence to tweak. I could find, because you're not going to sit there and make every sentence perfect with the perfect word choice. You're just not.
Right.
So going back in, I could, even now that I've said I'm done. I've now made version 3 and I am done. I'm sure if I read it again, I could be like, oh, I can improve this, improve that. But it's why I say it's done is because now I've done a thorough enough developmental edit that I know I've got the main things covered. Like it flows well. The content is clear. It has enough examples. The sentences are not, it's well written. No, is every sentence perfect? No. I could find sentences to fix, but it's well written. The content is solid. It's good enough. You need to get to that spot and call it good enough. And that has to be your mantra, good enough. With that said, what you need to know what good enough means to you. And if that means I don't want to take a lot of time on this book and do all of it self-editing, and I just want to pay an editor and I know that I can only afford this much, then your good enough is here because that's all you can afford or that's all you paid for. You can't expect here. You just not if that's what your time and budget is. But if you're like, okay, I want to make it the best that it possibly can be, but good enough, then you're going to do the thorough self-editing. You're going to have beta readers give you some feedback, and then you're going to pay for an editor, and then you're going to know, okay, this book is not perfect, but I've done everything required to make it the best I could in this season of my life at this time with this time and budget.
That's a brilliant way of looking at it. I love that. And you're right. Sometimes it's like, is it fulfilling the reader's promise? Like the promise you made to the reader that by the end of the book, you'll be here. If you've got that transformation, then sometimes you're just like, you can always do a revision down the road and add in more extra stuff. So that's good. So one last question. I know you've done editing of like over 300 plus books at this point, which is amazing. So I just want to ask
nearly
you,
300, almost 300.
Okay, almost 300. Well, still, it's like 200 would be amazing. So yeah, 100's great. So you are in an awesome experience. So I just want to ask you, have you worked with repeat authors and seen over time, did their writing get better based upon working, and editing? Like, have you kind of seen that transformation on the other side for anybody?
Yes. With my nonfiction authors, the number one thing I see that they improve on with their second manuscript is transitions, believe it or not. Because when I'm editing, I write in so many transitions. Again, it's a suggestion. They can tweak it and make it their own. I'm not writing their book for them, but I found that I need to model what a good transition looks like. I can't just say add one here. They'd be like, okay, I'll write the word next. So I do model it, and to model it, I actually write the transition in the text. But then they start to see what a good transition looks like. And now they start to see them writing those kind of transitions. And I'm like, yay, you're connecting the old topic to the new topic and showing how they relate, not just saying next. And so I see that improvement a lot. And unnecessary repetition. They're the two things that I see improvement a lot. There's still usually some content things because, again, reader's perspective. I still feel like, oh, maybe you didn't fully explain this topic, or maybe you over-explained this topic, but that can be kind of hard to see from the reader's perspective.
Yep.
But they definitely get better at not repeating themselves, and having a better transitional flow.
That's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Well, we have come to our end of our time together. It always goes so fast. So before we say goodbye, Katie, what's next for you? So are you just going to take a break for a while from writing?
Ugh. I actually, because I have my agency, I'm keeping my editing schedule light for the next 2 months and having my team take on the projects that come my way. Some of my team members will edit them by themselves, but some of my team members are actually in a work with me model, so they do a pass and I do a pass. So I'll do a few of those, but then that lightens the load because I'm not doing all of it. I'll do a few of those, but I'm not going to take on any soul for the next 2 months because my brain is a little frazzled. But also, I'm just going to be working on marketing my book and marketing my business. I'm going to just take some time to just focus on marketing and let them handle the editing for a little while. I will definitely miss it, so I want to come back. But for now, I'm like, I need a little break.
That sounds
Yeah.
good. That sounds good. Well, thank you so much for coming today, sharing your knowledge, and your book's available at Amazon, so everybody can reach out and get your book, and it's
Yeah.
in Kindle and it's in paperback. And of course, and for anybody who is a fiction writer, just know that there's a fiction version as well.
Yes, there
So
is.
that's great. Well, thank you for being here today, Katie. Thank you for everybody who joined us, and we'll catch you next time on the Easy Peasy Books podcast. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Easy Peasy Books, from author to authority. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you could leave us a review. It helps other aspiring authors discover our podcast. To learn more about writing, publishing, and leveraging your business book, visit my website at easypeasybooks.com.